Hello and welcome to my first model railway video. You may have seen a couple of short clips that I added into my Midlands Traction Highlights movies over the last couple of months, but this time I thought I'd do a full movie, tell you a bit more about the layout, what the plans are, where we are, and even give you a driver's eye view of the little test track I've got up and running at the moment. So stay tuned and I'll tell you what the plans are. So the layout's going to be based on a fictional location somewhere in the Wessex area, taking elements of places around there such as Salisbury, Westbury, Taunton, so Wiltshire, Somerset area, set in the sort of late 1990s to the early noughties, which gives a good mix of liveries and locos there. So we're talking about the end of loco haulage on the cross-country routes before the voyages are just starting to be introduced. Great Western was still running some loco haul trains back then. You've got the remnants of the Transrail, mainline liveries, Dutch liveries, but of course EWS have just taken over as well, so we've got the 66s coming on stream. So it was a really good period for filming, and it's also a really good period for modelling. Gives you a lot of choice of locos and liveries to use, and as I'll show you shortly, I've got quite a selection already. So as you saw there, we've got quite a selection of traction there, various liveries, locos and units, covering a period of time. So as it's a model railway, rule 1 applies of course, and I can run whatever I want. But the idea is basically I could just select locos and stock and run a period of the early 90s, so say when the 50s, 47s and 33s were on the Waterloo to Exeter. You still got intercity livery about, regional railways, and I could move on to later in the privatisation era where we've got GWR, Southwest trains, Virgin trains, and then I can even run up to the modern day if I want by thinning out some of the fleet again, as I have a GWR IET, I'll have the cross-country HST set, so I can do a real big period in time and cover lots of eras there, but still essentially keep the layout based in the same area. So as you can see, it looks like there's quite a bit of track down, but at the moment I'm literally just in the first stages of laying the track, getting an idea of spacings and everything. So all we've got actually running at the minute is a section of Cato Unitrack, the circuit going around there with a couple of sidings. So what we'll do is we'll take a quick driver's eye view and have a look at the layout as it is at the moment. So this is the fiddle yard, which is probably the most important part of the layout because the longest trains need to be able to be held in here. So you can probably just make out a 2+8 HST there, which along with a 10 wagon Freightliner plus loco will be the longest trains running on the layout. So once you come out of the loops, the track curves around into one section that way and another section that way. So starting from the foreground, we have the Cato Unitrack, of which we've taken a cab view ride round on already. That won't be staying there, so that's just temporarily for running trains in now. So moving inwards, we have a bi-directional freight line with a short loop there. And then as we move across, there's 3 lines for the down track. So there's a down main loop, which would take the HST. Then there's another loop and then a smaller loop before the actual down main line, which is the track there nearest to the HST. And then the HST there is on the longest up loop, with again another loop behind that with the Network South East Raycon, another loop behind there, and then what will be the down main at the very edge of the board there. You can probably see also that it's on a hinge section there, which was to make access into the centre easy. At the moment, it's no problem for me to get under there still, so that's staying as it is, and the track will be all continuous across there. But ultimately, going ahead in the future, it can be made with brakes in it, so it can be lowered, make things easier to get in and out of the centre of the layout, me included. And obviously that will affect the wiring, but for now, that's just going to stay as it is. So that's the fiddle yard. Now we'll look at the other areas. So this is going to be the open countryside section. So very little track wise going on in here. So in the foreground again we've got the Cato Unitrack, test track and a couple of sidings, which they won't be there. And then in the background we've got the down and up main lines, and then just the front of those again the bi-directional freight line. So looking to the left where the Mark IIIs are just coming out of what will be a tunnel mouth, that takes us round to the fiddle yard that we've just looked at, and then going around to the right there'll be another hill tunnel side there break to take us into the next section. Now, other than some crossovers on the back there, which is just to enable trains to get between various lines, the foreground I don't intend to have track in there at all. I'm thinking of having something like maybe a canal in there, could even be a lake or something like that, because I'd really like to do some water. But essentially it will just be a completely scenic area, so you can just enjoy the trains running through the countryside. So this section here I intend to be a yard, so engineer's yard, virtual quarry, something like that. So looking in the foreground there'll be some loop sidings and a run back, a little wagon repair depot, and then some longer sidings just on the other side of those, which are just on the other side of the Cato winding test track you can see there. And then in the background again we've got the main lines, which will be the up and down lines, a bi-directional freight line which will be somewhere near where the Cato Unitrack currently is. And then in the background there, at the moment my plans are for that to be one end of my heritage line, which we'll talk about more in a moment. But this area is still very much up for changing. Definitely need a yard of some sort. I've got built up quite a collection of engineering wagons and the like, so I'd like somewhere to have those, be able to shunt around as well while we've got trains running on the main line. So this is the station area. In the foreground, as you can see, there's going to be a depot there, carriage wash or loco wash just there as well, some stabling sidings, and then that'll go off to the yard to the left. And then the station itself, basically 2 island platforms. The nearest one would be for sort of local or terminating services, and then you'll have the 2 main lines running through the middle, and then the far one is actually going to be the heritage platform, which there'll be for steam and diesel trains that will be running on and off the heritage line, which I'll show you in a moment. Again, the foreground area with the depot and sidings is still a little bit to be decided, but essentially where the retaining wall is at the back, everything's going to be based off there. So you've got a run round loop for the heritage line, the heritage platform, 2 mainline platforms, local platform, and then there'll be the bi-directional freight line, roughly where the Cato Unitrack is at the minute, which will feed in. So finally, as you come out of the station area, this is going to be the heritage line. So you can see roughly where there's going to be a turntable there with some sidings off for the various locos. Then the track curves around there. And then that's our heritage station and line there. So long enough to take a visiting charter train off the main line, but essentially most of the time probably 6-coach train, steam or diesel locos, little demonstration freight, heritage multiple units, that type of thing. So just another section where it can be separate to the main line and give some interest with steam locos. So hopefully that's given you a rough idea of what my plans are for the layout. Obviously, as I do areas, I shall do some more updates and you'll be able to have a closer look at how things are progressing. One thing I've not mentioned yet is control system. Now, I did have a layout back in the 1990s, so I have quite a bit of stock locos, carriages, wagons, etc. going back for them. But I have been buying a few bits, shall we say, off eBay over the last few months. So I've got some newer locos in stock. But control-wise, I'm looking at keeping the analogue system at the moment. Now, I have a Gauge Master 2-track controller. So the idea to start with would be to have one for the up line, one for the down line. Then I'm possibly looking at buying either 2 single controllers then or another twin controller. So there would be one for the heritage line, which would run all the way around the back and right down to the branch that we've seen. And then another one which would control the yard and just coming into the depot. So essentially there I could leave 2 trains running on the up and down lines and then either be shunting on the heritage line or in the yard. Now DCC of course has happened since I was last modelling, and I would love to make everything DCC, especially with the sound as well, but obviously it does make quite a difference on cost, and I believe the older Farish locos can't be converted to DCC, although I've heard something about hardwiring them, so that's something I'd have to look into. I have brought a few locos just because the price was too good to ignore that are DCC chipped and ready. So certainly going ahead, I would love to go DCC, but it will probably be a case of weighing up the cost and slowly doing a few locos at a time. But obviously that's going to affect my wiring for the layout as well. So if anybody's got any suggestions, comments, ideas on the whole analogue versus DCC and the best way to go, I'd love to hear in the comments. So just drop them in the comments below and I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as I can. So hopefully that's given you an idea of where I'm going with this project. It is going to be a very long-term project, obviously. It's going to take a lot of time, effort, and of course a bit of money as well. But it'll be interesting to see how it goes, and it'll certainly keep me busy during the autumn and winter when I can't get out and film the regular trains. So the idea is I shall do regular updates of little sections I'm doing and how things are progressing. So hopefully you'll stay tuned and find it interesting. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up if you like it, and subscribe to watch for more updates, and of course all my regular train movies. Thank you very much. See you next time.